In the many years that I've been at UCLA, most recently as Anthropology Department Chair, I've been honored to work with many remarkable colleagues, phenomenal students, and distinguished alumni. One of the most satisfying aspects of my job as chair has been connecting with alumni who have used their knowledge and passions to change the world in important and often unexpected ways. Today's keynote speaker is an excellent example. Beth Rogers received her bachelor's and master's degrees at UCLA, and then after a stint at University College London, returned to Los Angeles to enroll in the Anderson School of Management, where she received an M.B.A. But Beth's first love, anthropology, called her back, and she completed her Ph.D. in 1990. I should add that I served on her doctoral committee and that her research, which brought together her personal interests in family-owned business firms, horticulture, and anthropology, was one of the most memorable and fun projects in which I've been involved. Since receiving her degree, Beth has published her findings on dynastic succession and the dynamics of family firms. But Beth is more than a fine scholar. She also is a committed citizen activist. Her numerous public service involvements have included serving on the California Regional Water Quality Control Board for the Los Angeles region and the Environmental Affairs Commission for the City of Los Angeles. For another example, she currently is a board member of the Tri-Counties Political Action Fund for Planned Parenthood, and in fact, the list goes on and on. Her political engagements have included being a member of Governor Schwarzenegger's transition team. She also took the courageous step of running for a seat in the U.S. House of Representatives in 2002. At the same time Beth was gaining advanced degrees and making waves in the political arena, she also was raising a family, while working, helping to manage her family's real estate, farming, and environmental horticultural business. Hers is a life of multifaceted accomplishment, in which, as you will hear, study in anthropology has played a pivotal role. Please help me give a warm and proud welcome to one of our own anthropology family members, Beth Rogers, and our 2016 Anthropology Commencement speaker.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Nancy and faculty. It is an honor to speak to you today and welcome the newest generation of our academic lineage, the class of 2016. Congratulations to all of you. You've done a great job. It's really hard work. So many cohorts of students have come and gone since I graduated 50 years ago in political anthropology. So of course I said, how do I connect with you? I asked myself that, and I tried to think back, what was it like 50 years ago when I was 21? I think we share something. We all feel awe, fear, excitement about what will happen next. You have begun a heroic journey to fill your adult life, independence, find a place in the world. Joseph Campbell sums this up in a wonderfully poetic passage. Once having traversed the threshold, the protagonist moves in a dreamlike landscape, curiously fluid, ambiguous forms, where a succession of trials must be survived. Fortunately, he gives my generation a role. Quote, the first encounter of that journey is with a protective figure, often a little old crone, who provides the adventurer with amulets against the dragon forces about to be passed. I have to admit I winced a bit on little old crone. You know, that's kind of a harsh judgment, but here I am. I am the first person who will be talking to you once you have become full-blown anthropologists. And I have seen a lot. Throughout my career, I returned again and again, and I truly mean this. My greatest survival strategy was using anthropology. I can't know what your career or life choices are going to be, but I can give you an idea of how to use anthropology. I want to share 3 gifts that I was given. The first is compassion, the second is politics, and the third is wonder. First, compassion. Anthropology set the gold standard for compassion. It's all about being able to step into someone else's shoes. If you have a partner, if you're on a team, don't ask what you want first. Try and figure out what do they want first. Possibly, most importantly, if you have an adversary, make sure you know what they want, because it's in finding either a common ground or strategizing what you're going to do next that you'll be able to find your own journey. My earliest and deepest experience of compassion was at UCLA in the field school in the late 60s when I was on the border of Tecate interviewing people who were coming illegally over the border. I was in a garage. A family of 4 was renting for $10 a month. The wife was 8 months pregnant with 2 small children. And she said to me, "We just walked 1,000 miles from Guadalajara because if we didn't, we were going to starve to death. We have to get over the border." And for 1 minute, I was a mother with starving children. That is compassion, standing in somebody else's shoes. Ooh, sorry. The second gift is politics. To paraphrase Sapolsky, who spent years with baboons, primates spend a great deal of their time making each other perfectly miserable over troop politics, rather beating one another up. The frenzied prestige competition of the wolves of Wall Street, which destroyed much of the world economy, or a quackoodle potlatch, are all the same thing. As Professor Troop said, you know, polities are everywhere. All of us live in baboon troops. I would argue that the ability to spot and deal with the micropolitics of team play and promotion will affect your life and career much more than your technical skills. You'll acquire those skills, but how you get along in the troop you're in every day, and we're in them every day, it's what's going to happen next. I had a fieldwork foray in politics. And you know, you're not supposed to talk about sex, religion, or politics, but what's so fun about talking to anthropologists, you get to talk about all 3 of them all the time. Sorry, not too much sex in this one, but a lot of religion and politics. My fieldwork foray into politics was with a group of businesswomen who stepped up to the plate in 1994, and you'll love this one, to attempt to prevent the takeover of the Californian Republican Party by the religious right and a feckless donor community. How's that working for us? By 2006, we were routed, defeated, and retired from the fray and re-registered independent or Democrat. I want to share with you a mini ethnography of what happened to us, and there's 2 reasons for it. One is, when you fail, my advice is do fieldwork, because you probably haven't failed. What has probably happened is you are in a failing institution and you need to understand how it's lost its way. And you may just be the collateral damage. Secondly, you may just not fit in that institution. You may need to be somewhere else. Don't internalize it per se that you did something wrong. Review your own performance, that's important. But look outward, which is what anthropology trains you to do. The second reason I want to share it is because of the incredible political mess in our country right now. It started here in California. And as an anthropologist, I know what happened. You will know what happened. Journalists don't know what happened, and for sure the politicians don't know what happened. To quote Sherlock Holmes, once you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, no matter how improbable, must be the truth. So first, let me set the stage of what is happening to American politics in an anthropologist's observation. Okay, it's going to take a little moment here because there are a few numbers. And this is California. In 1994, there were relatively equal numbers of partisan elected Republicans and Democrats in California, of which there are 186. 50-50 in 94. When 2014 rolled around, we have a staggering difference in those numbers. Only pecking order primate politics explains why the California Republicans did not start running women and men of color, which is the key to this. early 90s, to compete with the Democrats who made that strategic decision. They stayed in the past. Until they were both all-white male fraternities. But in the 90s, the Democrats made a strategic decision they were going to adapt to our modern world. In California, both parties have close to 40 white men at the moment out of 186 seats. However, after 2 decades, in 2014, the Republicans' abysmal response to social change has resulted in only 17 women and men of color, while the Democrats have 82. That is nearly 5 to 1. A staggering gulf and incredibly stupid. If you think that I overstate this, remember that the Republicans did not make the November ballot, and we have 2 women of color running for the California Senate. What on earth were they doing and why? For those of us who were working on this problem for the 10 years, what we couldn't understand is why they didn't want to win. That's the mystery in it. They didn't want to win because of the primate pecking order politics. So I decided we had to do some field work. We had failed utterly to influence their course. Sure enough, the background is the Republican Party in 1994 in California was in the process of being taken over by a true believer cult. It was based in the segregationists of the South who were recruited to the Republicans to break up the Democrat monopoly that the Democrats had experienced in the Southeast. I didn't have to go to New Guinea to find a cargo cult. I had found one in the 2 political parties that were becoming destabilized by the Republicans. So I'm going to share 2 fieldwork examples to underscore what I mean. The first was from the cult, and the second was from the feckless donor community that was the fraternity. An example of the evangelical cult fieldwork is illustrated by a woman whom I met at the 1998 convention where I was trying to recruit women candidates. She said to me, "Honey, don't you know that Jesus never saw fit to have a woman disciple? So why do you want women in the assembly?" This is at a political convention. I said, as any good anthropologist would, "Aren't we lucky that in 1948 in Nag Hammadi in Egypt we discovered more gospels? There was one according to Mary Magdalene, and in that gospel, Jesus and Mary were an item. So now we have a woman's gospel, we can have women in the church. Go into the assembly." She said, "I just don't believe that's right. I think we shouldn't have women in office." Well, you can't argue with that, but when we have an entire party now with women with Pelosi, 2 senators running, we must have a viable 2-party system, we must have women. The second group with the donors ran Bill Jones against Barbara Boxer in 2006. He was what we called the stale, pale, evangelical Republican male, or sperm. He was a nice guy, but completely unelectable. We asked Dave Cox of the Republican Elect Committee, "Why did you do that?" And he said, "Well, of course, it was his turn." We said, "How about winning?" And he took his finger and he stuck it in my nose, literally, and said, "If you Republican women would stop hating the men and go back to work for us, we could again win. Not in this lifetime is that going to happen." The reason I'm sharing this with you is I think when we look at this dismal array of politics on the national level, we think, is there any reason for you all to go to politics? I think there is every reason for you to go to politics, because we made a prediction 10 years ago when we were in the middle of this mess. And we said, some generation, probably in a decade, this was 10 years ago, is going to be positioned to make this country a wonderful, diverse, exciting place. And we think it's your generation. We predicted that in a decade, Hillary would be president, the 2-party system would be challenged, the disconnect between the evangelical and the donors would explode, the grassroots misogyny and racism of the Republicans in their current incarnation would collapse the party. And from that avalanche of change, we would have a new era. I encourage every one of you who has a vision, which you all do, of humanity that is mixed humanity and a healthy mix of all of us, to consider a political career. You know, What's happening right now, as you can well imagine, for our group, we have to say to ourselves, well, karma's a bitch, and you know she's about to be president. Wonder is our third gift. Anthropology makes us see the extraordinary in the ordinary. There is always something deeper and more fascinating going on with humans than what we see on the surface. As David Foster Wallace said in his iconic graduation address, it will actually be within your power to experience a crowded, hot, slow, consumer hell type situation as not only meaningful but sacred. An interesting contradiction on all of these fronts here at UCLA, and was my experience of wonder, was Carlos Castaneda. Carlos was a regular presence at UCLA in the 60s. He was quite a character. He wrote The Teachings of Don Juan, a fictional Yaqui shaman. He was a bit of a brujo, a trickster, a shaman. Contrary to popular image, he often wore three-piece suits and wanted Fellini to make a movie of him. His nickname for me was Isabelita. He told me that I was a dangerous woman. Who's dangerous at 18? He was a masher as well as a mystic. My last day of the business school here at UCLA, I left my sweater at the Anderson and went back to pick it up. Who should be in the classroom but Carlos with an ingenue on his arm? I said, Carlos, what are you doing here? And he looked at me and he said, Isabelita, I am looking for tax shelters. Where else but UCLA anthropology do we have shamans? Do we have politics? Do we have wonder? Do we have compassion? This is a marvelous education you've had, and I wish you the very best, the class of 2016. Thank you.